What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. And as usual, I'm your favorite Virgo host, Shakita Johnson. Happy Wednesday, y'all. I hope everyone's day and week is off to a fabulous start, and I hope you guys all have an amazing Thanksgiving. And please know that your girl is sending you lots of love and positive vibes your way. So as always, open up them arms and embrace all of this love and good old vibes that I'm sending out to you guys, okay? But again, thank you for joining me back for another episode this week. And thanks to everyone that tapped in with me last week as my season 3 premiered. I appreciate all the comments, all the messages that you sent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I do not take any of that lightly, okay? So we are going to keep the ball rolling this week. And I just want to introduce our lovely guest of the hour. His name is Mr. Rashad Mills of Baltimore, Maryland, okay? He is a licensed clinical professional counselor. He is also an author. He's a podcast host. His podcast is called Meet Me at the Happy Hour. And he is also a speaker and a graduate of the Morgan State University and Johns Hopkins University as well, that is here in Baltimore, Maryland. So he's an amazing person. He has a lot of insight and educational information to offer. And his main thing is it doesn't matter what type of adversity you have experienced in your life or where you may be in your life, you can always live a successful and full life. So like I said, y'all, we got into some things in this conversation, and I hope you guys take in everything that he said, and I hope you guys enjoy it and are able to apply something that he said. So I'm not going to talk too much longer. I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Rashad Mills so we can get into the conversation. But please, by all means, stay tuned to the end so you guys can hear the first Ask Keita question. And I'm going to wrap it up at the end. So see you guys then. All right, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. And as you guys see with me today, I have a lovely guest starting off our season 3 strong. I have he gonna get me. I have Rashad Mills joining me today. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm exceptional. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for accepting my invite. And I'm going to continue to do my mental health checks, something that I kicked off last season as a way to promote mental health and people to just check in with yourselves to make sure, you're feeling good or whatever. So mental health checks go like this. So you rate your mental health on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being you are feeling the best you ever felt, and 1 being I'm feeling okay. I have some room for pouring, but I'm okay and I'm managing. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your mental health today?
I would probably say a strong 4.
Okay.
I would go with the strong 4. And the reason why I would go with the strong 4 is I'm at a space in my life right now where I'm going through I'm going through some things, but because I've been so resilient throughout the course of my life, I know why these things are happening. And I know that on the other side of these challenges, that it's something major that God has for me. And this is just a testing period. So when things happen, I'm not thrown off course. It's okay, cool. This is just another obstacle. But I would say a strong 4, very ambitious, very hopeful. And overall, my mental health is in a really, really good space.
Okay, I like that. You just being optimistic, even though things are happening, I'm keeping a positive mindset. Because, I know, especially when you work in mental health and just navigating the waters of life, a lot of times when things happen to us, we can't help but think negative because that's what we see. So I like the fact that you're just still trying to focus and find the positive. My mental health today on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm gonna give myself a 5. I'm doing really good. I'm feeling good. It's been a long week getting back into this whole podcasting thing, but like you said, being optimistic, I'm grateful, and yeah, feeling good.
Good. I like it. Yeah, I
Yes.
like the health checks because I actually do that throughout the week with my friends. I'll say, man, I'm just checking in. You good, bro? You good, sis? And you'll be surprised how many people really benefit from somebody else just randomly checking in on them. So I love the fact that you do that with your guests. But I do that throughout the course of the week, and it's really, really helpful because a lot of people, we know a lot of people are really going through something and you would never know it. And when you do that check in, that's the avenue that they needed to go down to kind of release some things.
Most definitely. And I do it in real life too. I'll send a text here and there. I may fall short sometimes, but I think people know me well enough. My friends have even returned the favor and will extend a message like, hey, mental health check,
Mm-hmm.
1 to 5, whatever, And I think, like you said, a lot of people are going through things. So we just got to the point where we just like, hey, you got space that I can vent, or is this a good time to talk? But I do these and I started these again because I wanted people to take the time to really sit with themselves and their feelings. And if something is not setting right, not feeling right, really take a few moments out of your day to try to figure out, like, life be life. And like I always say, people got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities, but we have to find the common ground to give ourselves that nurture, whether it's to our spiritual self, our mental self, physical, whatever it is. We have to find that common ground to feed our souls, because a lot of us are put in positions where we are either Superman or Superwoman to a lot of people, and we can't continue to pour into everyone else without pouring into ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
gotta mind
Yeah.
our mental, So
Mm-hmm.
now that that is over, let's get into some things. So Mr. Mills, guys, he is from Baltimore, so we got another Baltimorean here with us today, and he is not a Ravens fan. So for everybody that's out there that be coming at me about Ravens, everyone here in Baltimore is not a Ravens fan, and he is a person.
I'm one of them.
Yes. So tell the listeners, who's your team, Mister?
Well, listen, it's pretty obvious. There's only one team in the NFL that counts and really matters. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me tell you why. Because I know a lot of people from Baltimore. Man, how can you be born and raised in Baltimore and you're not a Ravens fan? So here's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I'm going to be 46 in a few weeks. By the way, November 15th is a national holiday. My birthday is like a national holiday. The world just should shut down. And so when I grew up, we didn't have the Ravens. The Ravens weren't here until 95, 96. And so what happened is I would watch like the local Fox 45 station, and they always had the Eagles on, and I will watch them every week. And the Eagles had a quarterback by the name of Randall Cunningham, like incredibly exciting player. And the more that Philly would lose, I just gravitated toward them even more. So the more that they would get to the playoffs and lose, or they didn't win a Super Bowl, and friends would tease me, like I would literally cry as if I was on the team. And my fandom just was like, man, I love this team. And so that's how, because they were always on TV, and I just started to follow them. And I'm the kind of person that I can't have more than one team. Like I couldn't be in love with Philly, and even though we got our own team, just switch, because I was like indoctrinated deep into the culture. So I've been like Philadelphia tattoo. Like I'm one of those, like, when they lost the Super Bowl, I told the Twins, don't talk to me the rest of the night. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow morning when I'm taking y'all to school. But so I'm one of those fans. Like I love Philly, but Baltimore has a great organization. They have a great team this year.
I would say I think we're doing pretty good to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
And by the grace of God, we continue that streak. So aside from that, as I mentioned in your intro, you are a man of many things. You're a father, you're a therapist, you are a speaker, you're a podcaster. You wear a lot of hats. And with your permission, of course, I want to open this discussion off of reading your book overview, okay? And
sure,
then from that, we are going to dive into the conversation. So Monday, I was providing mental health services to inmates. Tuesday, I was an inmate in need of the very services I provided. As each gate closed behind me and the shackles got tighter around my wrist, I realized I was in for a rude awakening. Mr. Rashad Mills takes us on the unlikely journey of mental health, love, hurt, and healing. This is a true representation of resiliency that lies in the human spirit. Listen, when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, like I need more. I told you, I have the book on Amazon. I just got back into being able to really sit and read books or whatever. But the title of your book, Inmate 458627. Can you explain to us where the thought, what made you write this book? We're gonna start there.
Sure. So I guess the catalyst, if you will, for writing the book was several things. Number one, obviously, I was an inmate in the Baltimore County Detention Center for 3 months. And the sentencing was they gave me 3 years, and I'll discuss, the details in a second, but they gave me 3 years. They suspended 2.5. So now I'm looking at 6 months. So I did 101 days to be exact on 6 months. And when I was there, my thought was that there's no way that my life or my story as a Black man in my family, that my story would end with Rashad Mills being an inmate, and that's the end of the story. It's no way that can happen. And so while I was actually there, I said, how can I flip this? Because I have this thing in my brain now that I'm going to be a gymnast. Everything that I'm faced with, and if it feels like it's negative or really challenging, God is going to allow me to flip it for my good. And so while I'm in a cell, I said, I'm going to flip this. I'm an inmate. How can I flip this? And at one point, the thought was to create a motivational mixtape. So everything that would happen while I was actually in the jail, I would jot down things in my brain. It's like, okay, this is going to be a title of a track. This is going to be a title of a track. And, they give you a pen, and it's called a flexi pen. You can't have a pen that's too sharp, just for safety purposes, that you can write down what you want from commissary. So I had this little pen, and I would take and write it on the back of like an empty commissary sheet. I would write motivational mixtape, and I would write like, this is going to be a track, and this is going to be a track. And I went to my cell one night. I said, no, I'm going to do one better. I'm going to write a book. Now, here's the interesting thing. Prior to going in, I do happy hour messages every Friday, happy hour messages. And I was trying to compile the happy hour messages into like a motivational book. Every happy hour message was going to be a title, and I was going to have 300 and some odd chapters, small motivational books and questions. And I could never get it off the ground. And I said, God, why can I never get this book off the ground? And while I was in there, I was like, I know why I couldn't get it off the ground. God, you want me to write this book. And so I'm thinking about a title of the book. And I was like, how can I flip this? And I was like, I'm going to use my inmate number, because in jail, you always have to repeat your inmate number. And I said, I'm going to use my inmate number, and I'm going to write a book. And the second part of the title, I didn't get out until I actually got out. But while I was actually there, I would jot things down. And I actually went to work release. So I went from Towson to Ricestown Road. I had to catch 3 buses every morning to go to my work release. And while I'm on the bus, I would hear things, and I was writing things down. And I would get to my work release. I had access to a computer, and I would type some things in Microsoft Word, and I would send them to my email address. When I get home, I'm gonna finish this. And I just started writing and writing and writing and writing. And I compiled so many like pieces of paper, scraps of paper, that when I was actually released, I had several chapters already. I'm just literally piecing these things together. And one of the major catalyst for me writing the book is my father. Love him dearly. He's free now, but I'm 45 years old, and my father has spent off and on 30 years in jail throughout the course of my life. And I could not allow myself to go down the same road as my father. And luckily, I had an opportunity to bounce back. My father's, it was a little bit, it's more difficult. You spend 20 years, you're free for 10 years, and then you're locked up again for 10 years. So that's a big stretch. And I was like, you know what? I can't go out like him. I have an uncle that actually did 15 years in prison. I had a cousin that's my age that literally served about 26, 27 years in prison. And I said, there's no way that I can be another man in my family, and this is going to be the way my story ends, and I have to flip it. What better way to flip it than to actually write a book? And so that's how I arrived at actually writing the book.
I love that. And of course, like I said, I haven't read the book yet, but there had to have been, I'm going to assume, a cycle of events that transpired that led you to that situation to become, locked up.
Absolutely.
If you feel comfortable, can you talk to us a little bit about what led to that point? Or was it more of just your upbringing and childhood that may have led to certain things that led you down that road?
No, sure. I feel extremely comfortable, and it's a major learning lesson. So hopefully people that are listening to your podcast, they can actually grow from it. And like, I'm always 100% honest about it. So at the time, I was dating a young lady, and we were attending a church. She was a minister at one of the churches. I won't say the name of the church and or the pastor, because it's a very notable pastor. And we were dating, and I would ask her questions. Hey, are you dating this pastor? And she would say no. And then we started dating more and more. Some things started to be very inconsistent. And at one point, I actually found out that she was lying. I think she was actively sleeping with this pastor while I was dating her. And there was one time that I went to her house and I knocked on the door, really, really upset. Got in my car. And as I was leaving, I literally called her about 40 or 50 times, like back to back, because I literally wanted to curse her out. It was no Christ in me at that time. I'm a therapist, and it was no coping skills. I wasn't using anything at the time. And I'm going to be honest. And I was just so upset, and I allowed me being upset, right? And if we get therapeutic, like my anxious attachment style was triggered, and I'm calling, and I really wanted to curse her out, and I'm heartbroken, and all these different things. And one thing led to another, and I was actually, she went to the police, and she said, well, this guy he keeps calling me. It's like harassment. Okay, technically, she was right. I lost my cool, and I stand 110% accountable for my actions, because there's no way, no matter what she did, that would justify my actions. So I was completely wrong, and went to the police, and it's a charge called telephone misuse. And I had no idea that the charge actually existed. And so we went to court, and when we went to court, I walked in. I was actually doing my show. It was the Rashad Mills show on Power of Purpose Radio. That's the name of the station at the time. And I was going in, and my goal was to leave there and go do my radio show like normal. Actually, I'm sorry, it was Awesome God Radio. I had my own show. Tuesday, dressed, had my Starbucks coffee before I went in, my normal routine. And my brain was, I'm going to leave here, go back down to the juvenile jail, work with my kids, leave there and go do my show another Tuesday for Rashad. No way. So she walks into the courtroom. She actually has her daughter with her. And the case is flowing just as I thought. It was a misdemeanor. Now, one of my best friends, he says, man, I thought you should have got a lawyer. He said, man, you should get a lawyer, because I just don't feel comfortable about this. I said, no, it's a misdemeanor. Cool, right? Didn't beat her up. She didn't do anything to me. And that, nothing physical. Nobody stole any property. In and out. Probation before judgment, maybe. And the case is just flowing, just like I thought. And the judge says, what do you do? I said, I have my own show. I'm a, therapist and work with kids, a motivational speaker, have my own kid. The judge says, okay, do a lot of good things. And at the 25th hour, the state's attorney called her up. He said, come on up here. I want you to tell the judge your thoughts of Mr. Mills. And she described me as if I was Hitler or Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh, wow. That's how she described me. So the judge, I vividly remember this, and I'll never forget this image as long as I live. He sort of tilted his head a little bit. His head was to his right, and he pulled down his glasses to almost the bridge of his nose. And he said, Mr. Mills, I look at you differently now after the way this young lady described you. He said, I'm going to give you 3 years, 2.5 suspended, bailiff, cuff him.
Oh, wow.
Before I could muster up a thought, my hands were behind me in handcuffs. Mm-hmm. Before I could muster up a thought. And so I'm walking to the elevator, and as we talking about it now, it's like, it's real, because I could feel it, because the feeling will never go away. And it was almost like Mike Tyson hit me with a gut punch. Like I wasn't gasping for air, but I should have been, because it was like my breath was literally snatched away. And I'm going down to the elevator, what they call the bullpen, just sort of this holding area. And I'm in the holding area, and I called my best friend. I said, man, guess what? I said, they gave me jail time. And he said, are you serious? I said, bro, I'm really serious. And so the officer says, man, you could leave your keys here if you want, so your friend can move your car so it's not towed, which was cool. And when I go to the holding cell, this is how I knew it was real. One of the young guys in the holding cell already, he said, man, he said, why did they lock you up? And I told him. And he said, they lock you up because you played some phone calls? He said, man, you can't be serious. He said, you'll be out of here. Everybody's a jailhouse lawyer.
Right. Everybody's
like Johnny Cochran. And so,
especially on the internet these days.
Yeah, everybody's a jailhouse lawyer. And so I thought that I would be out. I thought it was a mistake. No, like that day it was, I don't even know how I managed to breathe that day, because it was like, I'm really going to jail. Like, I'm really going to jail. And at that age, I wasn't a young guy. Like, I had established life, was renting out a house, and it was like I had kids, and all of these things became unreal to me. Like, I couldn't even fathom like the reality. And when they're actually booking me, one of the young ladies, I'm doing fingerprints, and she said, well, where do you work at? And I told her, she said, well, do you want us to put you in like protective custody and make sure you don't see any of the young men that you work with? I was like, no, I'm good. And it was a young man in a holding cell. And this was a comical moment. And he said, I need some help. And I said, well, what's up? He said, you're a lawyer, right? I said, no, I'm in here with you. And he said, dressed like that. And he yelled to one of his friends, man, they locked up the lawyer, with the slick suit on. And it was that kind of made me laugh. But, it was like, it was one of those moments in my life and it started this whole, process, and there's 1,000 stories of, that I learned while I was there. And it was one of those moments that I'll never forget. But I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget it because it always has allowed me to know that one moment where you're not in check of your emotions, you could potentially risk it all. I mean, you could literally risk it all. And the other thing that I got out of that was, I'm a believer. God is my dude. God, even in the midst of that, God was like, man, I got you. Right? Yeah, I didn't have any fights in jail, any issues. God was like, even in the midst of this, man, I got you. And even in the midst of this story can work for my good. You're an author because you went to jail. If you hadn't went to jail, maybe you wouldn't have been an author. And your story has helped who knows how many people have read the book and was like, man. And brothers have come up to me and was like, man, I'm glad that I read that, because I've lost my cool several times and called my wife or called, a girlfriend, 20 times in a row because I was frustrated. I've had women walk up to me and was like, man, I should have been locked up 1,000 times because I've done that to the man that I was dating. Right. And so it was just like an incredible experience. While I was there, I learned jail can teach you a lot about yourself. Like jail taught me that I don't need as much as I thought I need to actually survive. I could survive with the bare minimum. Jail taught me the power of prayer. Jail taught me the power of the Bible. When I was in jail, it was real before, but it gave me another level of development with my relationship with God. I would come home from work release, do push-ups, sit-ups, dips, and I would open up the Bible, and I was hungry to read the Bible. I was hungry because that's all I had. At that moment, I had friends on the outside who were, supporting me and couldn't wait till I came home. Mother and family members were incredibly supportive, but that's all I had was the living word of God. And even till this day, if I ever feel like that things are going so well, I'll reflect back to those moments in jail, and it was like, you remember when you were in jail, you only had God. Now that you are free and you can move around and do these things, God still has to be the priority in your life. And jail taught me that. So I learned a lot of, valuable lessons in jail. Humility. Humility. I was actually locked up with one of the young men that I had worked with, several of them, 3 or 4 of them. And one of them, he was at the juvenile center on this horrific, rape charge. And I, worked with this young man for years, probably about 1.5 years I worked with him. And when I walked on a tier one day, and this is another story. This is the power of treating people right. I walked on a tier, and at this time I had on a green jumpsuit. So your jumpsuits were colored. That means where you were in your level. If you wore, I think it was gray, that means you're on work release. If you had an orange jumpsuit, that means you had like a felony charge. And so each color of the jumpsuits represented something. So I was on a green jumpsuit walking on the tier, and he looks at me, he screams across the tier, Mr. Mills. And he walks over and my heart drops. My initial thought was, he's going to say, you're a fraud. You were telling me what to do, and now you're in here. And I knew that he was going to say that, but he didn't. And you know why it's important to treat people right? That night I was starving. My commissary hadn't been set up yet. Jail, you eat dinner at 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's about 8 o'clock. I was like, man, I'm hungry. Can I get some noodles? He said, yeah, man, come up to my cell. He gave me some noodles and some Doritos. Oh, wow. It was like, yeah. So it was a lot of interesting stuff. So that was my story. And then after the 101st day, I got released, and so every chapter sort of represented a stage in my progress as I, got initially, booked and everything, and how everything worked out. It was nothing but God.
Man, that's amazing. Like, just the fact that like you went to jail, but you learned so many valuable lessons while you're in there. And of course, like, thank you for sharing, your story with us.
Of course.
And I think, like, I can probably speak for a million people listening. Like, I think we all just learned something about the whole calling, because, like, I think I've done it.
It's
Maybe
real.
Yeah, I never knew that was like a crime.
It's real.
Man,
And
that's crazy.
And here's the interesting thing about this, and I hope your listeners can gain that when they are going through experiences, is not always sort of quote unquote the devil. Sometimes it's really God. It really is. It's God growing you through the midst of something very difficult. When I was the first 24 hours there, I'm in the cell, on the tier rather, before you actually get your cell where you're going. And I listened to two young guys. They actually robbed a store in the Towson area, literally 2 blocks away from the jail, but they had a bail. Oh, wow. They had a bail. And they were talking about, I'm about to get bailed out. And I said, I'm in here on telephone issues and I don't have a bail? And I'm like, this is nuts. And it took me about 3 days just to sink that in to my brain. And then after a while, it was like, all right, this has to be bigger than me. They literally robbed a Dunkin' Donuts on York Road about 5 minutes from the jail. But they were somehow going to get a bail. And I'm just like, I'm in here with this charge. And then it was like, all right, Rashad, this is for your good. And you have no idea yet. But it was one of the greatest experiences in my life, one of the greatest experiences. And I just want to share one other thing for your listeners, and then I'll shut up, because I don't want to jump ahead of you.
Oh, no.
That one of the things that I discovered so hard from this experience is that sometimes, like, we are our biggest challenge. Like, the reason why that we haven't moved to a different place in life, it's because of us. And at that time, I was chasing every speaking engagement imaginable. I wanted to be the greatest motivational speaker ever. I did. But I would stay up late sending emails to colleges and universities. I mean, and my mother was like, man, this is, you're trying to do too much. And here's the interesting part about jail, as it relates to mental health. At some point, when I got acclimated to jail, and I know that sounds strange, how could you get used to jail? But when I got acclimated, maybe 3 weeks, a month in, you know what I realized? That I was at peace. Because my anxiety of trying to make it as a speaker, trying to be a father and worry about if I could provide everything my kids needed, for a while, it was like, man, this is kind of interesting. I'm not worried. I don't have to pay any bills. My kids are safe. And a lot of the anxieties that I had about trying to do different things, I didn't have them. And it gave me a greater perspective on guys that have served, and women as well, that have served much longer jail and prison. I was in jail. I didn't go to prison, but prison sentences. It gave me this level to understand why they become comfortable. Because just imagine, I know the structure. There's a certainty in jail. At 4 or 5 a.m., they're going to be yelling, feed up. That's when you eat your first meal. I know that at 11 to 12 is lunch. 4 or 5 is dinner. Maybe commissary later. I know that I have 3 hots in a cot. I know the structure of each day. And it gave me a great understanding of why some people, it's really hard for them to shake the jail/prison mentality. Because when you're in there, a lot of the worries that you had on the outside, you don't have. You know what your day is like. I don't have to worry about gas money or rent, nothing. Because I'm in here. And so that was a very interesting thing that I learned, that it was like, wow, I understand what my day is like. I know what it's like.
Yeah, you know what? I was like watching a video this week, and this big YouTuber, he talks about a lot of personal development, manifestation, spirituality stuff, and he did some time as well. And he said that when he was locked up, his grandfather told him, if you can find your inner happiness when you're locked up, he was like, you have it all. And he
Cool.
said he didn't know what that meant. And so he did a couple years. He did some years for like drunk driving and hitting a cop.
Mhm.
Actually, but he said that once he got in there, he like meditated every day, did all this stuff, and he found the happiness, his inner happiness, which helped him get through the rest of his sentence. I think he had like an 8-year sentence, helped him get through his sentence. And now that he's out and he's thriving in his life, he doesn't look for like materialistic stuff, things that made him happy prior, or was making him sick. He's like, I don't need all that. Like, I have my inner happiness. And that leads me to my next question is the transition from you being in jail for the duration that you were to when you got released. How was the whole like rebranding of Rashad process?
That's a great question. I think that I think about the week that I was about to get released, the reality became like realer that, hey, you got to like rebrand yourself, not just in terms of what people think about you, but you literally are about to get into the point that you have to, you're literally about to get into a point where you got to start the next phase of your life. Mm-hmm. What does that look like coming from jail? Now, one advantage that I had was a tremendous advantage that other people don't actually have is work release. Yeah. So when I was at work release, I was able to set some things up. And luckily that God just blessed me in such a way that I still had opportunities, right? I still had opportunities, and I wasn't coming home to not having a place and not having a car. I was lining up some things. So I literally had like some job opportunities already ready the next week after I got out of jail. But I think the mental transition was pretty hard to like rebrand myself. And it's like, okay, I got to get back to these things. And literally the first day that I came home, my brain already jumped back into trying to fight off some of the anxieties that I already had, right? Because again, I was striving hard to be the speaker and do all these other things. And I think the biggest challenge that I actually had in terms of like branding was me being, I'm a candid person. Like, you can ask me any question, I'll be candid. But what does that look like now when I go in these places and, I'm speaking? It's like, man, I have to say that I was an inmate, right? But, it was, again, one of those things. It was like, well, you know what? Now, I'm not going to say credibility because I don't like that when Black and brown people of color, you go to jail and you get sort of credibility. Not credibility, but it's like, I use it as more content. It was like, all right, I'm going to write a book. And it's going to open up more opportunities to help other people so they can learn from my mistakes. So to answer your question, the transition of work release really helped me because I could set some things up, make some calls, send some emails. That helped. And then it took me, it took me kind of a while. Even when I was writing the book, it was challenging. Like even when I came up with the title, it was like, man, this is a tangible piece of work that's forever in history. And it says I was an inmate. In my first book, it says I was an inmate. And it was like, how do I date somebody after this? And, oh, you're author. What's your book about? You're inmate. And it was like, so that's the kind of things that I had to kind of deal with in my own mental health. But as soon as I got out, this is why I love my friend so much. I'm going to say his whole government. He won't be mad. William Rogers, my dear brother, he said, man, I'm going to cash up you the money. Go to therapy. And as soon as I got out, like within the first probably 3 or 4 days, I was in my therapist's office.
How was that therapy experience?
Oh man, I've been working with this young lady for a long time, and when I told her what happened, like I've always had challenges with relationships, and she looked at me and she said, it doesn't surprise me, because she said you're a very emotional guy. I'm still working on controlling your feelings and things like that. But she said, if I know Rashad, you'll bounce back. And literally in her words, she said, I've never had a client that has gone through as much as you and you bounce back and you do it with a smile. She said, you walked into the office today, you weren't bitter, you weren't mad at the young lady. You was like, all right, I messed up. Let's see how I can flip it. So yeah, but it was a much needed session.
Okay. And I always, whenever I have like the other therapists on, I always ask them, are you still currently like receiving your own therapy? Because I think that's important that like therapists
Oh
have
yeah.
therapists, or they have like life coaches, or just a good supportive tribe, because you intake a lot of energy and situations throughout your own, like, your day. So like, are you still in therapy today?
Absolutely. It's mandatory. It's mandatory. And I think therapy is an ongoing process. And I think therapists must have a therapist because it's important. You said you're taking on every day, you're taking on somebody's energy. And depending how many clients you see a day, 5, 6, 7 clients, you're taking on their energy. You're still trying to do life itself. You're still trying to be locked in for that client. Sometimes, to be honest with you, sessions that last year and early this year, if I'm going to be very honest, 2 minutes before my session started, I was just flushing myself of my own personal stuff that I was trying to get rid of or manage so I can be locked in for my client, right? And that's really hard. So we have to have these outlets where we are on the other end and we can just have those moments where we're just vulnerable and we're not like working. Like we can be on the other end and just work, and we can receive what we give to somebody else. So it's like, it's mandatory. I mean, it's mandatory. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a big advocate for mental health and therapy. Like, I talk about my therapist all the time on the podcast or on Twitter. She has listened and watched my podcast. Hey, girl. It has definitely helped me, and especially when you find the right person, right? One thing that I really grasped a hold of over the years, well, recently, these last couple of years, is just the emotional intelligence piece, right?
Love that.
And you said that when your situation happened, you didn't really have that whole emotional intelligence, or just the awareness of the control, right? And I'm pretty sure now, just from me listening to you talk and listening to you on social media and your podcast, you're very much aware of it now. So I want to shift things a little bit and talk about the importance of emotional awareness or intelligence, especially dealing with men, especially dealing with, as a Black man. Can you just explain from your point of view what emotional intelligence is and why it is important to just grasp the whole of it?
Oh yeah. And speaking of podcasts, I gotta give a shout out to a phenomenal social worker by the name of Dana Lewis. He was actually on my podcast and he talked about emotional intelligence. And when he was talking about it, this is how real it is. When he was talking about it, I was convicted. Like I was literally convicted, and this was earlier this year. And I was like, man, dang, do I actually lack an emotional intelligence? And it made me take a deeper dive and analyze myself even more. And so the truest definition of emotional intelligence, and I was at a college a few weeks ago, Montgomery College, speaking to some young African-American men talking about unmasking emotions. And I talked about emotional intelligence. And the thing that I defined emotional intelligence as, I didn't define it, this is a great definition I got from the internet, was emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions as well as understand the emotions of others. So in the truest definition, that's emotional intelligence. And so the back end of that definition says understand the emotions of others, but it doesn't say control, because we can't control the emotions of others. So understand and manage. So that's emotional intelligence. And I think for people in general, it's important. I would like to say for men of color, it's even more important, because when we are not emotionally intelligent, we resort to some really unhealthy coping skills. One of those, because of the nature of environments that we've grown up in and the things that we have learned, and we have learned some unhealthy things, has been violence. Yeah. So let's just think of the nature of Baltimore, right? What's happening in our streets. A lot of those instances can be squashed, but there's no level of emotional intelligence there. The emotions supersede the intelligence. We react in an unhealthy way, and then that leads to these different things. A lot of times, domestic violence, that's a result of somebody's not emotionally intelligent. And just confrontation in general, right? Not being emotionally intelligent. And one of the key aspects of emotional intelligence is it's 4 components. And one of the components is social awareness. And when Dana broke that down on my podcast, I was like, wow, so social awareness is how you show up in different settings. And again, I'm a very honest person. I've been in environments throughout the course of my life, working environments, relationships, where people have said, man, you're arrogant. And I was like, what? And I would deny it at first. And even when I was at the Juvenile Justice Center, there was a supervisor, love her dearly now, we're really good friends. And she said, Mills, you come across as an arrogant person. You walk around like you own the building. And I was like, me? I'm laughing and playing and always, having fun with the boys. And then I had to take a deeper look, because guess what? In social settings, people were thinking about me in the same way. That I was arrogant. I was stuck on myself. And I had to take a deep dive and sit and was like, all right, man, maybe that's something there. In relationships, I've shown up the same way in a lot of relationships in terms of what women have said. Man, you arrogant, you're this. And I was like, man, I keep hearing this, so it must be true. I had to take a deeper dive. And one of the other components is relationship management. And I had to see how I showed up in relationships. Like again, I heard arrogant so much, I thought that was my first name. And it was like, arrogant. And I had to really, really sit with that. So emotional intelligence is important work, but a lot of people run from it because what it does is it highlights the things you're not comfortable with. Like, I wasn't comfortable doing my own podcast. When he was explaining it, I got like a bit squeamish. I was like, oh man, I'm not really emotionally intelligent. So yeah, emotional intelligence is huge.
And I feel like when you're more emotional aware, like you said, you realize like a lot of us, a lot of times want to control other people's actions. We want to control their emotions. But when you're more aware, you realize like, okay, I have no control over no one but myself, which you shouldn't want to necessarily control other people, right? Because you wouldn't want no one to do that to you. But it also makes you a better problem solver. It makes you handle things and carry yourself better. And there's this concept that I like to that I learned a couple of years ago, and I like to always keep in the back of my mind, is everyone is you pushed out. And they use it a lot in the spiritual and like the manifestation communities, but it is really true. And what that means is everyone is you pushed out is people respond to you how you respond to yourself. And that goes to show like people treat us how we treat ourselves. And if we don't treat ourselves good, and if we down talk ourselves, that's how people are going to show up around us. And a lot of times we think, oh, this person is arrogant or they're rude, but in many ways, some people do project their own feelings, emotions, and insecurities upon us. But as some token, like me, I always take a step back and be like, okay, maybe it was me. Let me look at the situation a little different. Okay, I can fix that. But like you said, people don't like to sit with themselves. You know what I'm saying? People don't like to sit with themselves, but it's definitely beneficial, I like to say.
It's extremely beneficial, but it will test you. It will test you, because a lot of the things that we're running from, we really need to sit and look at. And it's like, like therapy. Therapy is a reflection of the stuff that we've been running from. And that's why a lot of people avoid doing the work. It's like, man, I got to look and I got to see that part of me that I don't like. And that's the very nature of what we need to do.
So how do you think your life experiences shaped you as not only a man now, the man that you are today, the father you are, but as a therapist as well?
Ah, great question. When I got out of jail, it provided me with a new level of humility. I think the first few sessions that I had when I got out of jail, I felt like that I was a new therapist, that I didn't even know what to say. And I felt like that I didn't know what to say and or do, because it felt like it was a clean slate. It was like, man, I'm looking at the people just different now, because again, I've had a bunch of struggles in my life before, right? Happy Hour, my branding was all based on being an alcoholic, right? So I've been humble before, but this was another level of it. And so like looking at people, it was like, I'm that person. I'm the person that I'm working with. And I always thought that anyway, I thought that my clients and I, we were in the same place. I didn't think that I was bigger than them because I have a master's degree. No, I never thought that. But it just made us more equal than before. It really, really did. And interestingly enough, when I got out, I was actually working, of all places, I was working next to a jail in Carroll County, and I was working in a rehab center. And I was actually working with people, substance abuse, alcohol. And one of the clients was a gentleman that I was working with. He had some issues with alcohol. He would come to the session. He was just really, really unkept. He had an incredible stench about him, and he had a horrific sex crime. Like he was involved in like child porn. And as a therapist, there's some things that, you have to know your limitations. And when I've worked with clients before, crimes against kids, it's really hard for me. A lot of times I feel like that I couldn't properly assist them. I would refer them to somebody else, particularly against kids. I have, twin girls. So it was like, oh. Mm-hmm. But at one point, it was like, God was like, continue to work with him. Mm. His flaws are different than your flaws, but he's flawed nonetheless. And that was a humbling thing. Because when he told me, it was like, man, this guy stinks. And plus I can't see past this. And I don't know if I can give him the proper therapeutic care that he needs. And God was like, no, work with him. And I worked with him. It humbled me. Again, he got different struggles. Mine were different. And I worked with him. And toward the tail end of us working together, before I transferred to the practice that I'm at now, he said, Rashad, he said, you're the first therapist that actually stuck with me the entire time. And in that moment, it was like, okay, God, I know why you continue to allow me to work with him, but it just humbled me. It really humbled me, because it's like, you are no better than the people that you serve. No better. And those experiences have kept happening. And my relationship with God is always like, God has put me opportunities to serve, just keep me really humble, because I'm gonna be honest, that ego of mine could take off. God is like, nah, come on back. Let me bring you back down. So yeah, it made me a much better therapist.
Wow. And I think that's big, because the main thing is you humanize people.
Yes.
And a lot of times when we're in the field of mental health, or even if you work in corrections, or you're working with someone that has done something, right, that you may not agree with, sometimes in some instances, we tend to look down on them people, not necessarily putting ourselves like holier than thou, but it's just like, I would never do that. I would never make those decisions, whatever it may be. But you stuck it out. Personally, I commend you. And I commend you more because I am a survivor of sexual abuse. So I don't have any type of I don't know if I can humanize a person like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not there yet. My healed version of me is not there yet. But I do understand that was more than you. Like, you wasn't necessarily going with what your flesh was telling you. You was listening to God. And I think it's good that you keep God at the center of your life and acknowledge the fact that your spirituality and your beliefs and all of those things also played a huge part in where you are today. And this is just a random question that came up when you brought up your kids. Like, how has like your relationship improved, or where is it at with your girls, and how do the things that you've overcome in your life contribute to like your parenting? Because let's be real, like, you're a Black man in America right now, right? Just like I'm a Black woman, we have a lot of odds against us, but you have two Black beautiful ladies, so like, where does like all those things come into place now?
You're asking some great questions. There is a chapter in the book, and I can't think of the title of it. And this might make me really emotional. And so I've never lied to my kids. I just don't believe in it. Some of my friends say, man, you tell your kids like too much. And I was like, I just believe in being honest. And so my friend said, man, what do you want to tell your kids? My best friend, he was actually he's a godsend. He was taking my kids to school as if they were his. And luckily, his daughter and my daughters, they were going to the same camp. And he was just phenomenal. And he said, well, what do you want me to tell the twins? And I couldn't think of anything. I was literally shook. And I'm never lost for words as much as I talk. I said, man, tell them I'm in New York working. And so while I was gone, that was the quote unquote, right? That was the dad is in New York working. And when I got out, their mom had brought them to see me while I was still on work release. They had no idea, obviously, brought them up to see me. And in like a month's time, like got out the truck and how, they had grown and they were taller. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I would limit how much I would talk to him because it would make me just too emotional. Because again, I'm a kid that grew up. His father was in federal prison for robbing banks. So I know about the jail phone calls and, the holidays. And I know about going to federal prisons in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and going through the cert. I know about that. And it was like, no way my kids are going to be subject to me calling them from a jail line and certainly not come and see me. So when I actually got out, they came over. I was actually renting a house for my brother. So they came over and we were having dinner. We were having dinner. And my kids and I, we love seafood. So we were having like the seafood dinner, had crab legs and lobster. We were just living it up.
Of course.
And I said, girls, I got to tell y'all something. I said, what, Dad? And I said, I got to tell y'all that Dad told a lie. And I told you ladies never to tell a lie. And he was like, well, what did you lie about, Dad? And they are, at that time, they are what, 9 or 10. And I said, Dad wasn't working in New York. Dad was in jail. Mm-hmm. And they look horrified. And the oldest twin, who's much more, she's an empath than her, sisters say older, 1 minute older, but she's an empath. I mean, a real empath, and she can pick up emotions. And she has an older spirit. Right? Yeah. And she, at that time, we had finished eating the seafood, and she had like some kind of like, let's say like a cupcake or something, a snack. I remember her like putting her cupcake on the table, and she just like walked upstairs. She said, Dad, I don't even want my cupcake. And that moment, like certain moments are like vividly tattooed in my brain that I could never forget. And so now I'm like writing the book and I'm going on like a book tour and all these different things. And that was interesting because right after the book, soon after, we got COVID. And I'm doing a bunch of interviews and I'm doing them from home. And I was at the time, living with my ex-wife, had a small apartment, and I'm doing podcasts like this. But like right next to me, the girls might be on the couch and they're listening, so they have probably heard the story. They've probably heard the story 50,000 times for all the interviews that I've done. And, I've asked them several times, hey, is there anything that you would want to say to Dad? And they said no. But to be honest with you, and I know this day is coming, I think that when they get older, I think it's going to be a moment where it's like, Dad, what really happened? So they can understand the magnitude of it. And to be honest with you, when that day comes, I welcome it because as a therapist, I can't invalidate their experience. Right. And if my kid said, Dad, like, I'm pissed off because you told us to do this and you did this, or you went to jail, you lost your cool, I would have to like accept that. I would have to accept their view. So those were hard moments, but overall, I think I'm blessed to have a phenomenal relationship. At 14, first year of high school, playing basketball, and I think I have a phenomenal relationship. I think I have a phenomenal relationship with my kids. But yet again, I don't understand what that will be like for them later on. But at those two moments when I saw them at work release, and then when I had to tell them the truth, those were like really, really like hard moments. And I don't know the impact, but they probably heard me tell the story of the book and all this stuff. Yeah. Probably, literally 200-300 interviews and stuff. So I don't know what it looks like.
Do they think you're famous?
It's funny. I've been doing a lot of motivational speaking in Baltimore, a lot of the student athletes. And now they're actually playing basketball. So I'm in like some of the same circles, right? No, to answer your question, no. That is not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's nothing famous about me to them. And actually, they think I talk too much. So when I'm giving them, call them dad moments, one of them said the other day, and I put like a funny post on Facebook. One of them said the other day, Dad, I feel like I'm at one of your motivational events. So that's our way of saying you talk too much.
But listen, in the long run, they will definitely appreciate it, because I think we all had those moments where, like, whether it was a parent, a teacher, coach, whatever, used to drill things in us, and it was so annoying. But now that we're older, we're like, oh my gosh, now I get it. I understand. And I definitely respect and appreciate the fact that you said you validate their feelings. Like, even outside of just like the whole therapist complex, like, it's important to just validate people's feelings and experiences, because just because we never lived it or don't see things from the same perspective does not mean that their points aren't valid. And for kids now in this world, especially if you grew up and you come from a lot of trauma and just people not understanding and validating, I feel like that will go a long way with them. So definitely shout out to you for that. And what does like your advocacy work and things look like now for just mental health and where you are in your life?
Yeah, so again, I'm still doing contractual work through Hopeful Counseling, the clients that I see there. And I'm actually doing some mentor work in a Baltimore City school bi-weekly with some young men of color, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, which is really, really, really fun. Because again, I have a lot of opportunities to give learning, like real life learning lessons to them, which is important to me. And then the work that I do as a motivational speaker. So as a speaker, I'm always incorporating some of my life experiences in the work that I'm doing in terms of a speaker. And when you have like these situations where you're flawed and you've had challenges and you've been able to, overcome them and still overcoming them, it provides more. So you can speak from a different perspective, and it's like I can connect with you even more, because you can say, well, my man really went through something. He's just not talking it. He's actually lived it. And so that's the kind of work that I'm, still doing. In a perfect world, I would probably want to do therapy like 3 days a week and speak the other days, because just the toll of therapy every day, it's like really, really, it can become really draining. So, incorporate my own self-care. And then I've been getting back to sports. I was a sports broadcaster many moons ago. And so I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of announcing work for Baltimore City football and basketball games. Like this week, I'll be doing some announcing in some high school playoff football games. And that's been great too, because I can still connect with the young men, but now it's different. I'm connecting through sports, and I'm very intentional. Even when I'm talking to them and we're talking about sports, I'm going to try to leave you with something. I'm going to try to leave you with something that can still help you. So God is just right now has me in a season where I'm spending more time with males of color, the work that I'm doing. And I just love it. I mean, I just love it. Because for a long period of time, like mental health and therapy was like, therapy, that's for other people. And then access, we didn't have access to it. And so now we got access to it, but God has really opened up the door to do a lot of mental health work with people, men of color, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome. And I am a product of Baltimore City schools. I graduated from a Baltimore City high school. And I will tell you this, and I know this will make you feel good, that people like you really do impact the student's life. Because let's be real, like there are not a lot of teachers that may not care. Some coaches that may not really care. They're just there to get, their coins or coach and do whatever. But I feel like when schools have the ability to have like speakers and coaches and different people in there that are connecting with the students, whether you're an athlete or just a regular kid, those type of relationship dynamics really, really help. And even though I went to probably one of the worst high schools in Baltimore City, I had some very good, I play basketball too, by the way. I had some amazing coaches and certain teachers that really poured into me because they seen my potential, and it helped. I went to college, I got my bachelor's, I got my master's, it really helped. So keep doing the amazing work, not only that you're doing with your therapy clients, but in these schools, because they need it. These babies, they need it. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's going on, but things are just not looking too well. I know Baltimore, I know it's here. So just, I know it's only one of you, but I'm pretty sure like your words of encouragement and motivation is going to go a long way. But
Yeah, I
definitely take care of
appreciate it.
yourself too in those moments.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, they need it. They need
Yeah, definitely.
it.
So this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned, oh my goodness, I've learned so much from the legal side to just being in prison and all those things. So I definitely appreciate you for coming and speaking to me and everyone that is listening. Before we get out of here, can you please tell everyone where they can find like all of your social medias, your book,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever else information you want to give, where people can connect with you? If people want to book you for a session or for a speaking gig, where can people find you?
Sure. Before I do that, I actually want to thank you for having me on Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. I appreciate the opportunity greatly. I know I've been watching your work, you've been watching my work, and I always gravitate towards positive energy. So certainly continue to do what you are doing, because we collectively, I really believe that we have to do, and I say we, the community of people, putting out positive energy, and no matter what it is, quality content. Because I think we can, it's enough of the shade rooms and this and that. Like, so we got to put out quality content. And I'll just say this: continue to put out your content, because one of the things that I have noticed personally is that if people don't comment or share, people are watching. I've bumped into many people, and your bow tie. I was like, how do you know? And they never like or anything, but they are watching. So that's important. Continue to do what you're doing.
Thank
So
you.
people can catch me on all forms of social media. I started with TikTok probably early this year. I thought that was for younger people, but I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Rashad Bowtie Mills. Rashad Bowtie Mills. And then if anybody is interested in connecting with me in terms of speaking or interested in therapy, I actually give them my personal email address, because I got email address for speaking and therapy and a bunch of other things. But it's Rashad, my first name, Rashad Mills, Mills 629 at Gmail. So Rashad Mills 629 at Gmail. And again, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok is Rashad Bowtie Mills. If anybody's interested and I can add value in any way, just let me know, and I can see how we can partner up together to, like I said, add value to somebody else's life.
Yes, y'all. So I will have all of his links in the description box so you guys can go tap in with Rashad and you can get filled with his motivation, because your messages, like, sometimes it's just amazing how like God works, because like there's been a few times I've been in your comments like, oh my God, like I feel like you're talking to me, like this message was right on time. So I really appreciate those messages you be putting up, even on Sundays, the motivation and things. I'm a person, I don't just watch the video, I read the captions, because I like to really connect to the message. And I don't know, sometimes I think I internalize things too much, but that's just, I'm very intentional. I try to be intentional in every space that I'm in. And I can tell that about you, especially from the things that you say. You speak with so much passion and grit. So definitely keep pouring out like that. And like I'm going to say it again, keep pouring into yourself, because it's a reflection of everything that you're doing. And it's good work.
I appreciate it greatly. And thank you again for having me.
Yes. So guys, definitely go check out his podcast too. I'm gonna have all those links in the description. And one more thing I have to ask of you before we leave: if you have some type of word of encouragement or motivation for someone out there that's listening to this right now that may be struggling on the path in their life, they may have endured some type of traumatic experience and they're really trying to get it right, but still not latching on to their own personal growth journey and healing, what's something that you can say to them today?
Sure. There's a few things. Number one is, if you have the opportunity, therapy is great. Therapy is a wonderful tool that can kind of help you. And the way the therapy is working now, you can find, if you want a male or female, or someone of color, someone of they even have options where people are offering pro bono work, literally free work. So try therapy. Therapy is a great tool, can be a great starting place to help you navigate some challenges. And then the second thing is, as cliche as it sounds, you would never know how far you can go if you quit. You never know how far you can go if you quit. And then the third thing that I say at the end of every video is now let's work. And the reason why I say that at the end of every motivational video is you can go to therapy, you know that you're not going to quit, but there's still work that you got to do. So those are my three things. Therapy, never know how far you can go if you quit. And then even after that, now we got to work because there's still work to do.
Yes, let's work. I love that. I love that. I hope those words fill someone's spirit and enough to get someone up and moving and just trying to better themselves in whatever type of way that you guys are trying. Again, thank you so much for this conversation and for being a guest on Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. And y'all go tap in with him and his messages, his podcast, all that he has to offer, because it's some good stuff. And I foresee some amazing things coming from you in this coming year, and we're entering 2024. So hopefully it's a good year to all of us.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. All right, y'all. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation, because man, it was very insightful and filling to me. And thank you again, Mr. Mills, for coming to Brace Chronicles of a Virgo podcast and all of your inspiration and words of encouragement. And I truly, truly hope something that was said on that conversation help inspire someone or push you to the next point where you're like, yes, I can do this. My life may look like this right now, but this is not my end all be all. And please, I hope as well that you know that it doesn't matter what obstacles you have faced in the past. It don't matter what people said about you. It don't matter who was coming against you. Those people and those things from your past do not dictate your future. And you can do anything that you set your mind to. Don't get me here preaching, but y'all know how I feel about just being able to prosper in life and not holding on to any burdens and negativity from our past, because there are a lot of people out there that may not want to see you succeed. They may not want to see you in that good space. They may forever hold against you the things and mistakes that you have made in your life. But as long as you find that place of healing within yourself and that forgiveness, and you're able to apply those things and do better, that is all that matters. And that's what I want everyone to be able to do from this point on in your life, if you haven't already got there. But again, let me stop rambling. Mr. Mills' information will be in the description box below, so you guys can go tap into him and get fed daily with the encouraging messages that he pours out on his podcast as well as social media. So again, thank you, Mr. Mills. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate all the work that you are doing in the community for adults and youth around Baltimore and Maryland. So like I said, y'all, before we get out of here, we are going to dive into the first question for the Ask Keita segment. So again, these are anonymous questions. So this question is, hello, Keita. Hey, I've been listening to you for a while and I idolize your journey. How do you always manage to push yourself through, even with having mental health issues? It's been hard for me. So first and foremost, whoever you are, I want to thank you for tapping in with lovely old me. I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you can stand my rambling, my voice, and my platform. I do. And I also thank you for participating in the Ask Keita segment. So how am I able to manage and push through? Well, first and foremost, I take breaks. As you know, I'm just coming back off of my podcasting hiatus, and I take breaks. I take breaks in my personal life. When it comes to work, I will take mental health days. I take breaks from people, because people can be, a little draining sometimes, especially if you're an empath like me. I take on a lot, right? I'm just able to put myself in a space where I am nurturing my mind, my body, my soul, and trying to get regrounded. However that looks for you. For me, it may be meditation, it may be some Reiki, it may be some journaling, just some therapeutic things that are able to bring me back to my baseline. And then when I have those negative thoughts, because we all have them, right? And a lot of times the negative thoughts are what contributes to our depression, our anxiety, ADHD, whatever it is that we may be dealing with. I sit with them sometimes. I say sometimes because sometimes I'll have a thought and I'm like, nah, I'm up. This ain't true. I'm moving around. But if it's certain things I'm really trying to figure out what's going on, I sit with the thought of it sometimes, and then I try to find things to combat it, things that are opposite of it, because sometimes our thoughts are lies, especially when it's a whole bunch of negative things. So I sit with it and I really try to figure out, like, what is causing this? What happened throughout my day or maybe the day before that may have irritated me a little bit, that may have put me in a space of feeling sad, whatever that feeling may be for you. So I'm not a person that is afraid of sitting in my thoughts just for a little bit, because I know that me sitting here, I'm not going to stay here. I have to get up. I have to keep moving. I'm going to figure out a solution. And if I'm not able to figure out a full solution, I'm not afraid to ask for help. I have a very good support system of friends, family, and I'm in therapy. I'm always promote therapy. Always promote people to go to therapy. It's just important to have community. It's important to have a safe space to talk, So those are things that I do to kind of keep myself leveled. Just know that no one's journey is perfect. These healing journeys, mental health journeys are messy, because a lot of times we are approached with things that we may not want to deal with in that moment, but just because we don't want to deal with it does not mean that we're not supposed to. So I don't really avoid things, especially if it's something that I may can tackle right then and there, because when you avoid things, they just continue to pile up and it just be a whole mess. Okay, so it's a lot of different avenues to me answering that, but those are just like the baseline things that have been very actively helping me. So I hope that you can take something from that and apply them to you. And also, don't look at my journey or anyone's journey as being perfect, because like I said, healing journeys, mental health journeys are messy, but they are also joyful at the end. So embrace all aspects of it. Okay, so I hope that that helps you. Oh yay, I'm excited. That was our first question, y'all. And I have tons of more to come. So if you want to submit a question for the Ask Keita segment, you will either email me at chroniclesofavirgo22@gmail.com or DM me on any of my social media platforms, Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast, on Facebook, TikTok, oh my gosh, Instagram, wherever you are on social media, you can DM me. Whichever way you choose to do, it will remain anonymous. Also, I have a link that will be in the description box that you can click the link and just send the question that way, and it's anonymous as well. So, and you also got to stick through to make sure or see if I actually answer your question, but just be patient, because I've got a lot of them, but I'm gonna get through them. Okay. But again, thank you, whoever you were, for participating, and thank you guys for staying this long, hearing me ramble. Thanks for joining me and Mr. Mills for our lovely conversation. I hope you guys have an amazing holiday season. Be safe, okay? Don't eat too much, but if you do, know that that is okay, all right? And again, be sure that you tap in with me on social media. And if you are someone that wants to connect or chat, whatever, please by all means hit me up. All of my links will be in the description box below. And of course, as always, make sure you guys take care of yourself, but most importantly, take care of each other. Peace out.